Haynes is going to be on an NFL roster next year.
There's an elephant in the room. That elephant's name is Jamal Haynes right now.
Boston College is not as talented as Georgia Tech, and they did whatever they wanted to on that side of the ball.
Let's get into the numbers real fast. Opponents' points per game, Georgia Tech ranked 68th in the country. Yards per game, 105th in the country. These numbers do not lie. Georgia Tech fans going into this season looking for a player to replace Eric Singleton. We got Jordan Allen now.
Damon Stoudemire just needs to make sure he doesn't go lose any of these buy-in games against, the YMCA Haven.
Oh, man, I didn't know who I expected you to say there. But hey, everybody, before the episode starts, I needed to come on here and clarify something real fast. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know if I was just delusionally tired or something at the time of recording this, but every time I refer to this as a Tuesday episode, just know that I actually meant to say Monday episodes. Our weekly schedule during football season will be Monday and Thursday, not Tuesday and Thursday, as I refer to in the actual episode. So anytime you hear me say Tuesday, just know I mean Monday. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Jolly good fellows, episode 2 is here. We want to just, before we get into anything, we want to thank you guys. Almost 100 subscribers on the YouTube channel and over 400 views on the first episode. Really, really awesome. We didn't really have any expectations, but for me at least, that has blown my expectations out of the water. So thank you guys for that. I know Patrick Patience, who's not yet been able to be on, but will be on, we're all very excited about that. So first and foremost, thank you for the support up to this point. We're excited to bring you another episode today, the first of our Tuesday episodes, recording now on Monday, but will be posted tomorrow on Tuesday. Patrick, I'm pumped up to talk about this recap. Georgia Tech is 9-1. How you feeling?
Well, I wasn't feeling too well about, 24, 25, 26 hours ago. I wasn't feeling too well. However, I am feeling much better than I possibly could have. And look, you said it, 9-1. So that's all we can say right now. And I'll say it, 9-1.
Yeah, another stress-free win for Georgia Tech. Never a doubt on that one. Just never didn't think they had it in the bag from start to finish, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty unbelievably poor performance on the defensive part. And then even offensively, they had some miscues. Look, we talked about it last week going up to that atmosphere. It wasn't going to be anything crazy. It was going to be kind of a dead. Honestly, the crowd actually looked better than I probably predicted. However, they came out and they won the game, and I think that's really important. And look, they set up probably, I think me and you were talking about it when we were texting earlier, the biggest Tech home game in maybe our lifetimes.
Yeah, a lot of exciting things on the horizon for Georgia Tech. We're going to dive all into that stuff. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about Boston College. These Tuesday episodes are going to be more kind of recapping the previous game, and then on Thursday we'll post a preview of the Pitt game, and that's kind of will be the schedule for the remainder of the college football season. Yeah, let's talk about it, Patrick. Boston College, Georgia Tech able to squeak it out. Last second field goal from Aiden Burr. 12 seconds left. I guess 11 by the time the kick went through the uprights. That is kind of a story in itself. But they were able to pull it out, and that's the most important thing. Just give me your overall thoughts on the game. Obviously, again, the defense kind of struggled once again. But just tell me overall how you felt about the performance and the score.
I guess the first half it looked really well. Like everything was going well. The offense was clicking. But you could tell, BC, I think they punted once in the first half. And after that, they sort of had their way with our defense. I think they maybe punted once in the second half. Our defense just was not able to get any sort of push. They weren't able to really get pressure on the quarterback. Again, no turnovers. That's a huge thing that I brought up last week, and it reared its ugly head again. I was very disappointed. I was actually watching with several friends not far from Tech's campus. And, there was a lot of lumps in everybody's throat for a while. But I was very disappointed with the defense. However, they ended up able to pull it away. There's several positives. Including Malik Rutherford, Eric Rivers looked really good. So it wasn't all negative. Again, it's very hard to win. And, if you're 9-1 and you have a chance to go line up for a title next week, it's hard to complain. However, the next two games, if the defense does not make some significant improvements, it's going to be very difficult to win.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you brought up Eric Rivers and Malik Rutherford. 121 yards for Malik. I would imagine that's probably a career high for him. And then 119 for Eric Rivers. I can't remember what the year was, but I saw a stat. I think it was Andy maybe that posted this stat. First time two
Yep.
Georgia Tech receivers over 100 yards.
Since 2005.
2005.
Yeah,
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's
Demarius Bilbo and Calvin Johnson, who I think was pretty good here.
yeah.
Calvin Johnson, Demarius Bilbo in the 05 game against UNC, which I think Tech won 27-21.
That's why we have him on, folks. That's why we've got him on. He's got it all up here. I mean, an amazing performance for both of them. That's what happens when you have a Heisman candidate at quarterback, and someone that we should talk about as well from that game. I mean, we've said a lot of things about him, and we're going to continue to because somebody's got to. Haynes King, 371 yards through the air, added another, what was it, 50 something?
Yeah, 53 yards on the ground, I think.
53 on the ground. So over 400 all-purpose yards again for Haynes King and a touchdown, no interceptions. Doing such a good job protecting. You know what's funny, Patrick? I remember Haynes King first year as a starter at Georgia Tech. And, he had flashes for sure, but he was turning the ball over a pretty decent bit. It's like the least of our concerns now. I don't want to, I mean, let me knock on some wood real fast, but as far as
Yeah.
throwing picks goes, he's been so good about protecting the ball. The only quarterback this season without an interception worthy pass. The fumbles are something to discuss, but as far as him throwing the football, he's just improved so tremendously as a passer. What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. I think that in the spring, I guess, of 2024, he made a point. He said, I got to turn the ball over less. And he's done an excellent job of that. Obviously, there have been some fumbles, a lot of which are probably not his fault. Maybe it's more in the running backs. And he gives Tech a chance to, win every game that they play. And his passing is he's so accurate right now. He's throwing the deep ball as good as I've ever seen him. It's really impressive. So I'm really excited about where he's at right now, and he's playing his best football he's ever played right now. And he will give us a chance the next 2 games, next 3 games, however many games we go. He's going to give us a chance, and we're lucky to have him. I'll say that.
Amen. Amen. We are. I posted a meme on Twitter. Wasn't meant to be taken very seriously, but everything on the internet is super serious. It was just
Of
about
course.
Georgia Tech and Texas A&M both barely squeaking by inferior opponents. And
I took that from you and I put it on my Instagram here earlier.
so
I'm
today,
sure I'm going to get more
today that
defense.
made it to the Texas A&M fans, and they are not very happy about what I said. Obviously, they've got a Heisman contender themselves in Marcel Reed, but you do kind of wonder if they're pretty bummed that the Haynes King is not still donning those colors. But like you said, we're very lucky to have him. He's made a heck of a name for himself, and honestly, a guy that at the beginning of this season probably wasn't being mentioned in very many NFL draft conversations. In my biased opinion, and I will say it's a biased opinion, I think he's played his way into those conversations. What do you think about that?
I think that he's making some throws now that look like NFL throws. He is throwing the ball. A lot of people were saying, oh, he only throws screen passes. He's making NFL throws right now. He threw a pass down the sideline to Eric Rivers. That is an NFL throw. And also with his intangibles and his work ethic, that Haynes is going to be on an NFL roster next year. May not be a starter. He may not be a first round pick. A team is going to want him because of his work ethic, how he handles himself. Look, and he's also, like, people always question his arm. He's been making some throws recently that people make on Sundays.
Yeah, 100%. Don't tell the new burners that have been created on Twitter the last week that he's going to be in the NFL, though. We've seen some pages arrive talking about maybe the CFL or perhaps the XFL. I'll give them a little bit of love. I know this will make their days to see that they were mentioned on the podcast, but I think a lot of people probably would agree with you that he's definitely started to play like somebody who could be on an NFL roster come next season. So again, another incredible performance from Haynes King. Someone who I actually did see his Heisman odds increase going into this week. Very excited to see that. I think top 5 now, according to
Yeah, he's plus 2,500, and I
yeah,
think he was plus 10,000
10,000
last week.
before. Yeah. So
Some people may make a lot of money if they got on that, and he has a couple of good games here soon, but
yeah,
he's plus 2,500 now.
it's right in front of him. I mean, it's right in front of him. A lot of people are gonna knock the schedule to this point, and the teams that he's making, putting these ridiculous stats up against, but you got a good team in Pitt coming to town this week, and then you play against Georgia at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. If he can replicate these kind of numbers against those two teams, then again, anything could happen. I mean, I already am of the belief that he should be in New York, but if he can do the same thing against those two teams, then I think he makes a great case for someone who could lift a trophy. But
I absolutely.
that's our weekly spill on Haynes King. But again, some other guys had some pretty good games too. Malachi Hosley continues. We talked about him last week. He continues to break out as someone who while we're talking about the NFL, I tweeted out during the game, is he playing his way into NFL conversations? And I wonder if you're him. Did you come to Georgia Tech expecting for people to be asking that question so fast? What do you think about Malachi Hosley? Playing his way into the NFL and also just becoming RB1, let's be honest, at this point of the season.
Yeah, he is absolutely RB1 now. And I mean, it's no slight on anybody else in the running back room. He's averaging over 7 yards a carry. However, I will say the only reason I want to pump the brakes on the NFL talks is because I'd love for him to be here again next year because I know he has one more year of eligibility. However, after that, yes, let's
Go
get in the
ahead.
NFL. He's been unbelievable. He had a great game yesterday. He's running north and south. He hits the hole really hard. It's a pleasant surprise. I think a lot of people, when he transferred here, were thinking that he'd probably be behind Chad Alexander and Jamal Haynes. Obviously, Chad's been hurt. And then maybe even Trillane Maddox. And I think people said he'd probably be the third running back,
Yeah.
but he's now eclipsing almost close to 700 yards. And we'll see if, he gets up to 1,000, which, I mean, that'd be a hell of a performance if he keeps going that way. He's been unbelievably impressive. And like you said, he's playing his way into some NFL talks, hopefully next year. But
Yeah, hopefully next year. He is only a junior, so hopefully Jackets fans will have one more year to enjoy Malachi Hosley on the flats. I wonder if it'll be a situation. He doesn't seem like the guy that would be too dramatic about making sure his pockets are stuffed coming into next season. I don't. He doesn't strike me as that kind of player. Assuming that the GMs don't come calling after this season, I'm excited to see what he can do in one more year as RB1 at Georgia Tech. 15 carries, 107 yards, so 7.1 average, and the game opening touchdown last week against Boston College. I mean, he is just continuing again to emerge as the RB1. And while we're talking about that, there's an elephant in the room. That elephant's name is Jamal Haynes right now. And, we've talked about this off air. We're going to say it on air as well. We all know that Jamal Haynes is not performing to his standard right now. Give him credit. He scored a touchdown, a good touchdown, a crucial touchdown against Boston College. But outside of that, had the opportunity for one that where he could have walked into the end zone that he dropped. And just overall, the production hasn't been there. It seems, you talked about Hosley hitting the hole running north and south. It seems he's dancing a little too much. Some people think it's a product of bad blocking when he's in on the plays. Curious what your thoughts have been on Jamal Haynes up to this point.
yeah, first off, Jamal Haynes is a great guy, awesome human being. He's had a tough year. Let's not be honest. He has really struggled. Really, I don't think he's had a game that he probably would be happy with since September. Like you said, he doesn't go north and south very much. It's like he's already trying to juke somebody whenever they're not even close to him to juke. So he obviously had a couple of drops. I think that there's a couple of combinations he's not running the style he should. And it's also probably in his head now. I mean, look, he might have a little bit of the yips. And I think that right now he's trying to go where every single time he gets the ball in his hand, he wants to go 70 yards. Look, if you look back at his last 2 years, he was able to really be a tough runner. He would carry defenders, he'd carry some defensive linemen, and he's not doing that right now. Look, I hope he is able to get it fixed because, there's plenty of time for him to rewrite any wrong or anything like that this year. However, look, it's true. He's not. I would play Malachi Hosley. He needs to be RB1 and he needs to get more carries, which he has. And then look, if you get Chad Alexander back here soon, I mean, Chad Alexander is a guy that I think was really good last year. So I hate it for Jamal because I think that he really wanted to have a great senior year and it hasn't gone according to plan. However, he's on a 9-1 team and he has plenty of opportunities still to make some huge plays for the Jackets. But it has been surprising. I thought that, he was not, he was pretty kind of a solid, you kind of know what you expect from him,
Yeah.
but he's struggled this year. There's no doubt that he struggled this year, and I hate it for him. However, Malachi Hosley thankfully stepped up. And also, thank God we have a quarterback in Haynes King that is also probably going to eclipse 1,000 yards. Who knows how much more he can get, but so that helps a lot in the rushing game as well.
Yeah, definitely. You made a really good point about the opportunity still being in front of him. And if this somehow gets to Jamal Haynes, I don't think it will. And I hope that he's not on social media right now for his own sake. But if it does, somehow, I hope he hears me when I say, your last 2 seasons have been incredible. And the opportunity for you to be remembered still as a legend at Georgia Tech is right in front of you. Patrick, you can attest to this, and I think anybody else listening would probably agree. If you can be the Jamal Haynes that we've seen for the last 2 seasons against Pitt, against Georgia, in the ACC championship, in the postseason, we will all forgive you for these first 10 games. It will be hindsight. If you can go make the plays like you did last year against Georgia in these next 3, 4, however many games that Georgia Tech still has on the schedule. We all know what you're capable of. And if you can go do that, that is how you'll be remembered at Georgia.
Right. And he's also the least of our issues right now in terms of what Tech has problems on. He hasn't not lost any games this year for us. He just hasn't put up the statistics that I think we were all accustomed to Jamal Haynes putting up. However, he's got an opportunity here the next couple of weeks to really dig in, and I'm sure he's going to. That kid loves Georgia Tech. He was getting pursued by Alabama and other schools this offseason to go there.
Yeah.
He wanted to stay with Georgia Tech because he knew that he had an opportunity to win a championship this year. So I hope it for him because he's just a great kid and a great representative of Georgia Tech.
Yes.
And so Jamal, look, go run for about $150 this week, maybe 200 the next week, and
we're not asking a lot of you here. Just 350 yards in the next 2 games, maybe 3, 4, or 5 touchdowns, and we'll all forgive you for your sins. Everything will be okay. But before we move on, and we'll keep on touching on individual players who had good games and everything like that. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about the defense.
Are you sure you want to do that? I don't know if I want to talk
We'll
about the
make it
defense.
quick. We'll make it quick. There's not too much to say, but I mean, there is a debate I think to be had. There's 2 different schools of thought I feel like amongst the Georgia Tech fan base in regards to how the defense is playing right now. You've got this side who thinks it's a talent issue, a Jimmy's and Joe's issue, and then you've got this side who's like, okay, Blake Gideon, it was nice knowing you. Hit the road, Jack. What do you think about the problem that Georgia Tech finds themselves in defensively right now? Which side do you think you would lean on?
It's probably not super black and white. Blake Gideon, Brent Key took a risk on him, hiring Blake Gideon, a guy that had no defensive coordinator experience. That's a huge risk. He's never been a play caller on defense, and it has looked apparent the last 2 weeks. The Jimmy's and Joe's issue, I do agree with. I think that Tech does not have some people on the edge on the defensive line, especially at linebacker, that are that talented or clearly playing just horribly right now. However, you're playing Boston College and NC State the last 2 weeks. Jimmy's and Joe's, you should be able to come up with a better game plan. You're not playing Clemson. I guess maybe not this year. You're not playing Georgia. You're not playing Notre Dame. You're playing teams that with significantly less talent than you. Boston College is not as talented as Georgia Tech, and they did whatever they wanted to on that side of the ball. Even when the stops that Tech got on defense, it was because Dylan Longren overthrew a pass. There were drops. So there's a lot for Blake Gideon to answer for, and I think every Tech fan probably knows Brent Key lit into him on the sideline and in the third quarter after one of the touchdowns and was not happy, and I was lighting into him on the TV.
Yeah, we were all lighting into him in our
I don't think you could hear me. So I think it's not completely black and white because the defense has clearly regressed as well. I think that coaches are seeing things on film that they see against this Tech defense, and they're taking advantage of it, and we're not adjusting to it. There's also probably some people that shouldn't be playing right now. I understand that they're senior leaders. I'm not going to call out any. They maybe should not be on the field. Let's be honest. It's very apparent. You got to play your best players that give you a chance, especially when you have a chance to win a championship.
Yeah, senior leaders is an interesting thing, and that's why I kind of think that I would actually lean towards it being more of a coaching issue because Georgia Tech returns 9 players, 9 starters on the defense going into this season, and defensively they were not this bad last year. And to be honest, they weren't even this bad at the beginning of this year. I mean, this is the same defense that Georgia Tech spotted Colorado, and say what you want about Colorado, spotted them 3 possessions at the beginning of the game, and the defense single-handedly kept Georgia Tech in that game for that first half. And for really
Right.
for you could say that about a lot of situations, really. Even against Duke, the goal line stand against Duke, things like that. They've had their moments this year, but it just seems that these last 3 weeks, in particular, have just been a little wonky. And again, I don't know if it's like you said, coaches just started to pick up on something in film and are just exploiting it over and over and over again. But still, let's make some adjustments, and then maybe we'll stop having those holes to exploit.
Right. It'll be very interesting because the offenses that we play the next 2 weeks are much better than the offense that we played the last 2 weeks, who made it look like we couldn't stop a parked car. So it needs to change, and it needs to change quickly, because you're not going to be able to win. You are not going to have an opportunity to win these next 2 games if you are not able to get some stops. And you have to force turnovers. Somebody was talking to me on Twitter about, well, I guess the 2014 Georgia Tech defense wasn't very good. They gave up a ton of yards. I said, yeah, they also forced turnovers as well. And so that's a little bit different. So Georgia Tech has a Blake Gideon. He has his work cut out for him, and he is ultimately responsible. And so I understand, I don't want to go dog on him too much. However, he's making over 7 figures a year. He can handle it.
Yeah.
And his defense has not performed up to anybody's standard, and it's been embarrassing. I mean, you should not be playing this poorly right now.
Yeah, I mean, I get criticized for free on Twitter, so somebody who's making as much money as he is definitely open to some criticism as well. And not that I or all these people know what we're talking about, but I don't think you really need to know what you're talking about when the numbers look like this. Let's get into the numbers real fast. Opponents' points per game, Georgia Tech ranks 68th in the country. Yards per game, 105th in the country. Points per play in the country. Yards per play, 116th in the country. Third down conversions, 85th in the country. Fourth down conversions, 130th in the country. These numbers do not lie. I mean, it's black and white right there in front of you. That was hard to do. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know it was that bad until I just read them out loud right there. That's pretty rough.
I don't even want to know what their turnover margin is, or not
I
necessarily the
probably can
margin,
find
but
it
how
for
many
you.
turnovers Tech is forcing. It's not enough.
94th in the country,
So,
Patrick. 94th in turnover margin per game.
yeah,
The numbers don't
there's
lie,
some
man. The
issues. There's
numbers
some
don't lie.
issues on the defensive side of the ball that I think are apparent. I listened to the Cover 3 podcast. Those guys are awesome. They're pretty pro ACC, and they're great to listen to. And I think they have a soft spot for the ACC and Georgia Tech, and they're hard on the Tech defense, because there's some issues that are going on. And if it's not fixed, then what could be a very special season that is legendary for Georgia Tech is going to end up being a decent season,
Yeah,
or a good
100%.
season.
Shout out to those guys, man. Shout out to anybody who's willing to be a voice for the little people in this college football game, man. It's pretty political these days, and taking a stand and using your voice to speak out for teams like Georgia Tech and for other teams in the ACC is it comes with some scrutiny, but it's part of the job. And I like being the underdog anyways, and I just think Georgia Tech it perfectly embodies the underdog. So I love the position that we're in, and we'll get more into that here soon. Before we move on to all that though, let's make some finishing touches here on Boston College. We can't finish our recap without talking about Jordan Allen. Georgia Tech fans going into this season looking for a player to replace Eric Singleton. Isaiah Canyon, you're great. Eric Rivers, you're great. Bailey Stockton, you're great. Malik Rutherford, you're great. We got Jordan Allen now. That's your Eric Singleton replacement.
Jordan Allen has been unbelievable the last several weeks. He's a playmaker, and I think he's getting more and more touches. He needs to touch the ball 10, 12 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
In a rushing attack this past week against BC, he's been fantastic. And I know Bailey Stockton, I think, has a little bit of an injury, or I think his leg is a little bit messed up. He hasn't been able to play the last couple of weeks. So Jordan Allen is really good. That was a great spot in the recruiting trail by whoever got him in here.
Yeah,
He's been fun to watch. He's explosive with the ball.
I mean, pretty
That
comparable
kid's
to
gonna
Eric Singleton in that regard. You get as far as yards after catch goes, and just being exciting with the ball in his hands. Jordan Allen, I think, has filled that role fantastically. And obviously, he's come on late in the season because he's now starting to get more opportunities. But again, for me, it feels like a perfect replacement for Singleton because he's got the speed that Singleton had, and he's just been electric. I tweeted a couple weeks ago that he's the future. Someone responded saying that no, he's the president. At this point,
That's fair.
at this point, you got to agree. Let's look at the numbers for him: 75 yards all-purpose against Syracuse, 110 against NC State. His second really impactful game as a freshman in college football, he goes for 110 all-purpose yards and then 83 and a touchdown on Saturday against Boston College. Man, this guy's been exciting to watch. Maybe someone that Tech will have to pony up for to see how he does as a sophomore. We can pump the brakes on those conversations.
Yeah, I don't want to. We'll wait till the transfer portal
Amen.
opens before we have that.
Yeah, exciting to have him though, and to see what he's been able to do as a freshman. It's been awesome. I mean, Singleton again had a great impact as a freshman too. So really exciting to have another guy who could have a long and fruitful career at Georgia Tech. Anything else, Patrick, before we move on from Boston College?
No, I mean, you won the game. Georgia Tech played really poorly on the defensive side of the ball. That was a team that they should have beaten by more than 2 points. However, if we were sitting here right now after a loss, the conversation would be a little bit different. We're 9-1. Let's put this one to bed, and the defense has to make some adjustments this upcoming week. The red zone offense has to be better. The next two games are some of the most important, probably the most important Tech games in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So I've watched a lot of Georgia Tech football every year. I love it. I care about it. I've never been this excited going into the last 2 weeks of the season in my entire life. So we'll see what happens. But whatever, you beat BC. If you handle your business, no one will ever remember that game except you won.
Amazing. Yeah, it's incredible to be in this position, dude. I mean, I remember being, I probably told you this, I told several of my friends this. I remember being so nervous going into Colorado, as nervous as I had ever been for a season opener in my life. Not because I thought that Colorado was this giant team that Georgia Tech just couldn't fare to beat, or because the media was so wrapped up in Dion and Colorado that it was just a must win for that reason. But I just knew that if they could get through that game and eventually get through the Clemson game, which they did, that we could be having this conversation at this time of the year. And here we are, man. I just couldn't be more proud of those guys for getting to this point. You know, they're facing a lot of scrutiny online right now, a lot of criticism from people all over the United States and college football fans everywhere because they have control of the teams they play, apparently, according to a lot of these people, and those teams aren't good enough, is what the narrative is at this point. But they put themselves in
A
a
bunch of
position.
SEC talking heads that disproportionate, or they only look at certain results in the ACC. If you beat a, excuse my language, shitty SEC team,
Those don't
that's
exist. You can have four losses in the SEC and still be in the top
SEC is
25.
deep. Florida's really deep. Georgia beat a Florida team because the SEC is really deep, and then Tech beats Wake Forest, who's actually a very good football team, by the way. That's a problem. The SEC, like your Arkansas, Kentucky, like Ole Miss beat Kentucky by 7 points. They barely beat Arkansas. Georgia barely beat Auburn. However, they play in that tough SEC, and Georgia Tech plays in the ACC. So it's clearly a narrative, and people are already trying to write that narrative going into the last couple of weeks of the season. However, it doesn't matter. You win the games. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you all
You
can
look
see
at
where this
all the
conversation is going. We're putting on our playoff committee chairman hats right now and getting inside the minds, or at least getting inside our minds, is how we feel the process should go. If we were in the committee, which obviously we are not, doesn't
we should
seem
be though. I think we should
it
be.
doesn't seem the criteria is too crazy. I mean, all the what was the guy's name? Mac Rhodes steps down. They're like, let's get someone from the SEC in here. Shocking. But I just what you were making a point about the margin of victory for Georgia Tech, and that's important. We're not delusional enough to think that that's not important. As Patrick said, Georgia Tech should have won that game by more points than they did. The defense should have played better. They should have had a wider margin of victory. But what is most important, and what has always been the most important, is wins versus losses. And when you look at Georgia Tech's 9-1 record, there's not many other teams that have that record. So why are we moving the goalpost now and to move Georgia Tech outside of this conversation. It's something I've talked about a lot for the last few weeks, and I'm pretty passionate about. So you tell me how you feel about that.
It's ridiculous. Like the SEC is able to have quality losses. If you lose to Auburn, Arkansas, Kentucky, clear powerhouses, Mississippi State, powerhouse, obviously. Texas goes to overtime with Kentucky and Mississippi State, get their what kicked by Florida. It's a problem. And in the ACC, it doesn't get the same benefit of the doubt. And I'm not going to pretend that ACC is as good as the SEC. However, there's a clear agenda on the SEC. People don't understand how hard it is to win football games. And you can look back at previous teams that have gone, I guess, more in like the BCS era or in the playoffs that won a lot of close games. Go look at 2010 Auburn. They beat some really bad teams by a very small margin, and they probably should have lost. But at the end of the day, they won the game. People are already starting to talk about the ACC shouldn't even get a team in the playoff. But it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
And Georgia Tech has an opportunity to prove a lot of people wrong the next 2 weeks, next 3 weeks. So it'll all right itself.
Amen. And I mean, we're not losing sight of that fact. But that honestly is the most important thing. The road is right in front of them, and their destiny is completely within their grasp. But as you mentioned, the narratives that are already starting to be created, a month out, 2 months out, even this stuff was being said to me months ago, weeks ago, while Georgia Tech was still 5-0. That's what bugs me. And people again, they'll say that you still control your own destiny. Why are you complaining? Well, Georgia Tech right now is on the outside looking in, and that's where I have an issue with it. I don't think that they should be in that position, and I'm fully anticipating them to be ranked behind to lost Alabama this week. I'm fully anticipating them to be ranked behind USC this week, who they beat Iowa, who I think that was their fourth loss on the year. But that's going to be considered a quality loss, or I'm sorry, a quality win.
Wait, hold on. Who's Alabama's before they lost this past weekend? Who did they lose to?
I think it was bottom feeder ACC team Florida State, but that was so long ago that we've all just conveniently forgotten about that one.
Florida State's record the last 2 years in the ACC?
Oh gosh,
like 2-14, 2-13,
something along those lines.
Yeah,
but because it was week one,
that's all you need to know about that.
It was week one though, so it doesn't count. We shouldn't even,
unless it's the SEC, unless it's LSU versus Clemson, unless it's Georgia playing somebody else. I guess they didn't play anybody this year, but so
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
The narratives are already being created, as you mentioned, and I just, again, we understand that Georgia Tech, to their own standard, has not played well in the last few weeks. But if wins and losses are the most important thing, they deserve to be in the midst of the conversation right now. Had Texas A&M lost to a 3-win South Carolina team this past weekend, they would still be in the top 12 without a single doubt. They've played 7 of the bottom 8 SEC teams, but they're still going to be considered a top 10 team, even had they lost that game. They played amazing in the second half. It didn't happen, so that's a moot point. But again, this Georgia Tech team is very much capable of being the team that makes it in like Ohio State did. And I'm not going to say they're going to win the national championship, but Ohio State made it in as the 9 seed last year. Imagine had they not made it in. Georgia Tech deserves a spot in this playoff, man. That's all I'm going to say. Again, like you said, they have
the opportunity.
They've got the opportunity to prove it. The offense is certainly good enough. Top 25 in every statistical category.
And again, if I'm an opposing team, I definitely don't want to be going up against the number 10 that's wearing white and gold. I promise you that. I don't care what you could say about Georgia Tech at all. There's probably not any quarterback in the country that means more to their team than Georgia Tech's Haynes King, and there's no one that would like to have to go up against him defensively. Excuse me.
Yeah. Thank goodness they've got the opportunity. Against Pitt and against Georgia, because if the season were to end today, they would be wrongfully left out of this thing. So, moving on from that, they've got Pitt coming into town this week. A 7 p.m. kickoff. Thank goodness. Georgia Tech has not lost a home game in 10 straight games in Bobby Dodd Stadium, and they've not played at Bobby Dodd Stadium in, what'd you say, a month? It's been a long time. These boys are excited to be playing against what is most likely going to be a sold-out crowd, against a team that, even though their coach said he was fine with getting beat by 100, just got throttled by Notre Dame.
He only lost by 22, so I guess he actually underestimated his team.
Yeah,
It's like, I thought we were going to lose by 100.
you got to wonder though where they're at mentally, after just getting dominated truly from start to finish in that game, at home. That was a tough one. But
Who knows?
the
We'll
opportunity
find out.
the opportunity is right in front of Georgia Tech with Pitt coming into town. 2.5 point favorite at the moment. Pat, you think that's a good line? How are you feeling about that game right now?
It makes sense. I would say Georgia Tech just plays much better at home. That's been apparent for the last 2 years. They're a completely different team in Bobby Dodd Stadium than they are on the road. And if you don't think that this is the biggest home game in my lifetime, that this is going to be an electric atmosphere at 7 p.m. It's going to be loud. It's going to be fun. Georgia Tech has an opportunity. I think Andy Demetra tweeted it out. He's like, hey, this is what Georgia Tech was at 4 years ago. And it was that awful Notre Dame game I don't want to talk about it. And this year, 4 years later, you fast forward, we're lining up for a title this weekend. It's a big deal. It's going to be loud. There's a lot of people. It's going to be sold out. Let's have fun. Let's win the game, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll have a or a full preview rather on Pitt coming up for you guys on this Thursday. But I agree, it's certainly the biggest, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest 2 game stretch that Georgia Tech has had in my lifetime. So I'm very very excited to not only be at this Pitt game but also to be at the UGA game as well, man. This is an exciting time to be a Georgia Tech fan. If you've got the means to do it, please make your best effort to be in the stadium for that game. It makes a difference. It truly does.
It'd be loud. It's 7 o'clock. You can have a bunch of beverages before the
Yeah.
game, and maybe that'll make a lot. So it's 7 o'clock. You'll have plenty of time to have some fun before the game and see how loud it gets, and have some fun.
Yeah, Patrick and I
This is
will be
awesome.
there tailgating. So if you guys want to come say what's up, be sure to swing on by. If you see us, say hey. I've heard a lot of people making excuses already for the weather because these November night games tend to be a little bit cold. I just looked. Right now, we're 7 days away, 6 days away at the moment. But right now it says a high of 73. So we're going to have great weather, and it's going to be a fantastic night at Bobby Dodd Stadium.
Is that too hot for some of them or something? Is that too hot for some
Yeah, probably
people?
so. We got to make sure that the water stations are nice and filled up before that game. But listen, don't let the weather be your excuse to not be supporting the team that has their biggest opportunity in many, 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 many years coming up this Saturday. Be at the game. We're excited to give you guys a preview on that one. But yeah, that probably will wrap us up for Georgia Tech football this week. But the basketball team had a pretty important game as well in Athens against UGA last week. It was honestly a better performance than I expected. Patrick, what were your thoughts on that game?
Well, college basketball, I guess, is also not transitive as well because Georgia beat Maryland
Yeah,
Eastern Shore by about
17.
2,000. We took them to overtime. It was an okay performance. Tech, clearly, they didn't make some free throws. They had a chance. They were up 8 with under 10 minutes to go. And it was a game they very well could have won. I think Georgia probably is a little bit better. However, I think it does give a little bit of optimism going forward because Georgia Tech can play. I think Georgia's, I hate to say it, probably a tournament team. And I think that Tech was able to play and go, shot for shot with them in a game they very well had an opportunity to win. It was on the road. So we'll see what happens going forward. We got to stop losing to them in basketball and baseball and football and whatever else. So I think, but I did say it doesn't matter what happened on Friday as long as in 2 weeks is what happens then. So
Yeah, but I couldn't agree more. You didn't have to keep on going with football and
I know. I'm sorry.
basketball.
I get a little bit animated on it
I know
sometimes.
that pained you to say as much as it pained everybody else to hear. So that's you get the pass. But again, a good effort overall from Georgia Tech. Like you said, we're right in the game until late. It was 66 apiece, and then Georgia Tech was outscored 20-8 for
60 to 52 before that
yeah.
as well. Cam Kraft finally, he could not throw in the ocean, but he looked great on Friday in Athens. He was able to really drain some threes, and so that was very promising. If he can play like that consistently, that's a huge step going forward. The guard play looked much better. As disappointing as it is to lose the game, we were 16-point underdogs in a game that we had a very good opportunity to win late in the second half. Damon Stoudemire just needs to make sure he doesn't go lose any of these buy-in games against, the YMCA Haven. here soon. So as long as if he can win all those games and get us to ACC play and be competitive, that's fine.
Oh man, I didn't know who I expected you to say there, but it wasn't the one.
Oh, I played the YMCA at Brookhaven as well, so I'm not going to play against Georgia Tech, but there's probably a couple of teams that Georgia Tech has played that may have not been much better and lost to.
Sometimes there's some hoopers in those open runs at the YMCA, man. You never know who you're going to run into at a pickup game at the Y. But no, I agree. Yeah, 17 points on 5 threes for Cam Kraft. A really good game from him. He had 16 from Jaden Mustaf, 17 from Lamar Washington, or maybe reverse that, 15 and 16. So yeah, good effort from a lot of guys. Ultimately, they fall short, but as you mentioned, a lot of optimism for these next few games as long as they can continue on the trajectory that we've seen so far this season. Patrick, I think we've hit on just about everything that we need to. What are your closing remarks just from everything that we've talked about before we get out of here?
As disappointing as the defense played and as frustrating as it was to watch, they won the game, and you'd rather be 9-1 than a lot of other teams. There's a huge opportunity this upcoming weekend. It's a home game. It's 7 o'clock. It should be sold out. Be loud. Like, it's gonna be fun. This is a fun time to be a Tech fan. Show up and be loud. Get there early. Go start going to tailgate, to a bar, whatever you need to do. Be there. We'll preview it more on Thursday. This is exciting. I mean, you can't ask much more than to be where Georgia Tech is at right now. So, look, this Saturday can't come fast enough, though.
Amen, amen. It's good. It's such an exciting time. ACC Huddle will be back in the house. Jackets undefeated with ACC Huddle there under Brent Key. So I hope that continues. The defense, they don't even have to be a top 25 defense. Just be as good as you were at the beginning of the year. Honestly, I believe that's enough for Georgia Tech to be competitive in these next 2 games and beyond. So I'm excited to see, how everything looks. We hope to see you guys at Bobby Dodd Stadium this Saturday. As Patrick said, be there. Don't worry about the weather. Be loud. Give this team a true home field advantage, as we all have done such a good job of at this point and in the last really 2 seasons and 3 seasons, really, since Britt Key's taken over. Yeah, we appreciate you guys listening. We thank you for the support. After one episode, it's been amazing. We're looking forward to continuing this. Say what's up if you see us at Bobby Dodd. For Jared Hollis, I'm sorry, for Patrick May, this is Jared Hollis and the Jolly Good Fellows.